just haven't come forward yet because there isn't enough of them. But there are people out there that are making the same sacrifices that both John and Thomas made. So
There might not be John Adams or Thomas Jeffersons, but there are Malalas. So, and for right now, that might be a good first step.
And there was one story that we mentioned a couple weeks back, and I've already forgotten the details, but there was a checkpoint in Iraq or Afghanistan, and a woman and her family went up to it, and the guys at the ISIS guys at the checkpoint or whatever started shooting, or maybe they did. They shot one person, and the woman, who the bad guys assumed that she was going to become a victim, she picked up the gun and shot back, and that rallied the people around her to fight back, and it ended up being that the woman and her clan that was with her killed and caused to run away a bunch of ISIS terrorists because they had the strength and the nothing left to lose that guided them to pick up the gun and fight back against these terrorists.
I don't know if people remember this, and this was called to mind during the Eric Garner business in the past couple of weeks. Someone brought up that the Arab Spring began with a merchant who was harassed by the government, the forces, the powers that be, and kept attempting to keep him from selling, thwarting his business, his enterprise, and so he burned himself in protest. And that's not to draw a parallel between those two cases. What it's to do is to say that it's not just these religious-based organizations, it's the states in which people find themselves as well that are fostering an environment of sit down, shut up, comply. So it's not just these forces that are outside. It's state-sponsored and state-sanctioned harassment and attempting to get people to follow the rules, the dictates, the laws, whatever, and pick them to death with these little regulations or something. Yes, we have that culturally here too.
EPA?
Not to that extent. I haven't seen anybody torch themselves because, yes, the Forest Service is, or the what is it, the agency that declares animals on the endangered
Fish, Game, and Wildlife?
Yeah, whoever declares endangered species.
EPA, Environmental Protection Act.
I haven't seen anybody self-immolate over things like that here. Not that it couldn't happen, but there are other ways to protest due to our cultural references, due to the way that we've structured our culture. There are different ways to protest, and people don't have to go to those extremes. But you can certainly understand in states, across the Middle East, why people would.
Particularly when they don't have the sort of Western ecosystem that we have. How many Westernized states are there in the? Oh, there's just one.
Just Israel. Happy Hanukkah. Yeah. Those guys are the model that everybody should be following, and they're not. It's just weird. Isn't it amazing when you look at the big battles? They do tend to be one group wanting to impose their power and control over another group. The aggressor is the one who wants to exert power and control, and those who want to just be left alone and have freedom end up being the defenders. And so you have to win with a defense, and that's where conservatism is in the battle against progressivism. And we do talk about it in terms of war and battle, which is a very useful construct, because we can use the terminology of war and battle to define the roles that we play and the positions. And I mean, there's an awful lot of usefulness that can be put to it when we use it as a metaphor, when I use it as a metaphor. But days like today, when there are 135 dead people that quickly, just in an instant. I mean, I think it did last a couple of hours, but I woke up this morning and those people were dead. They had not been dead when I went to bed last night. And that's that's the real face of real war, of aggressive governmental power and control over the forces wanting to just live their lives. Because those people that are dead are Islamists, and some of them might be fundamentalists who believe in the subjugation of women, but they wanted to go to school, they wanted to learn something, they wanted to be good farmers, they wanted to be good soldiers for their government, they wanted to build a bridge or dig a ditch, they wanted to get married and have children, and they won't have that opportunity because somebody else decided that they needed to die for their cause. And that's the real battle. And that's far more important than Cromnibus. You know?
Good old Cromnibus.
You know, I mean, we get all, and I confess I did not pay that much attention to the continuing resolution omnibus, not a budget, we're going to fill it up with as much pork and go back and forth. I didn't really pay that much attention to it because I'm so over it with Washington. You know, not that much good is going to come out of Washington for the next 2 years. They're going to spend more money than we have. They're going to annoy me on a regular basis. And the best that's going to happen is that we will maybe hold the left back to not being as dangerous as they could have been. I mean, yeah, it was a big victory in November, but it's a limit. There's a limit to how much that can be done.
That was one incredible segue. I just have to say, I'm impressed.
I'm good.
I'm really impressed. I did a slow clap there. Just wow.
Well, and I wasn't really even forcing the segue, but it really, and I actually did not intend to talk about the massacre in Pakistan today. But we can't, you know, when I was leading or opening up the show with, you know, Happy Hanukkah and it's going to be Christmas and all the happiness, it just hit me. You know what? There's 130 people that are not going to have, they don't celebrate Christmas, but they're not going to have their winter holiday. They don't get to go to school tomorrow. And so we kind of needed to talk about that, and then it became a discussion about Islam, and then it's like, okay, reaching for the opportunity to stop talking about something sad, let's talk about what we were going to talk about, which is Cromnibus, and then it's like, oh my God, that's so irrelevant at this point, isn't it?
It is, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it personally, is that it passed and it's done, you know.
They spent $1 billion. We have $1 billion to spend. Woohoo!
Yeah, I mean, it was going to $1 trillion. It was going to happen. It happened. Suck it up, and let's move on to the next round. There are people who no doubt should be primaried over this in their districts, but that's a small number. The thing that just shocked me. And it really didn't shock me after the initial oh wow was after the bill got passed in the House. I saw people calling Treygowdy a rhino, not
what?
just a rhino, but calling for him to be replaced because he voted. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
No.
It was
Treygowdy?
Treygowdy.
Are you
No.
kidding?
Seriously.
How would you? Wait, if Treygowdy is not good enough for you, I'm sorry. They're just, dude, really?
And that's the point, is we eat our own, and it is infuriating. You know, we already knew going into this that Mitch McConnell was going to get. I mean, hell, the day after we won on election day, there were reports of oh, Mitch is waving the white flag. He's surrendered already. Game over, guys. Please. But no, seriously, the after the Cromnibus passed, and so I hate that name. After it passed, this happened. This explosion of, oh my God, these are horrible people, rhinos that we need to jump on and get rid of because it was one bill and it was going to pass anyway. There are better targets than Treygowdy out there. Please, priorities, people. Can we focus on
make sure
priorities?
targets have a D after their name, okay?
Yes.
Seriously? Our guys, even the lamest of our guys, he deserves your silence. If you don't support him, just be silent and pick on the other team, okay? Don't pick on our own team right now.
I'm not going to go with that statement, not because I think it doesn't apply in this case, but because I don't want that to be the soundbite people take away from this discussion. You know, that you have is silence. I've spent 5+ years taking our side to task and doing it as often and as forcefully as I can, and I will continue to do that. That's not the thing that I want to focus on. What I think that we have is there's not been enough preparation given around decisions like this, and this is a long-standing pattern we've seen on the right, where Congress, Republicans in Congress, Republicans in the Senate, haven't prepared the ground for actions they're going to take. And because they haven't, we have this whole culture around speculating who's getting what or who's doing what or who's gaining what in terms of a bill. And so when they leave the space blank for the explanation and the conversation around that to happen, the gap gets filled with all of these people speculating. And some of them are attempting to make their name as, you know, an oppositional person to the rhinos, to the establishment, whatever they want to say. And I think the valuable thing for the Senate and the new incoming members of the Senate and the House to take into this is you've got to prepare the ground, and you've got to do it better. And if that means more communications with people like bloggers on the right or the media to attempt to keep us from eating our own, then they'd better get on that. I think that's a much better thing to take away from this than who spent what, who needs to argue about what, whether somebody needs to be called on the carpet or not. It's how about we start doing this better?
Yeah, and you know, obviously, I'm not going to have a political career because I don't do soundbite speaking very well. You kind of have to, you know, I'll throw out a phrase, and if that phrase is quoted, then and you didn't understand the 4 hours of thinking that went into, and that I really carried behind that phrase, that means I didn't really even mean the words I said. Yeah. So what I meant was, what I should have said was. Was basically what.
Do-over.
Do over. You'll fix it in post, right, JD?
Yes. Well, no, seriously, we'll just cut it out and then move it all over. It'll be fine.
Never happened.
Can a Tea Party person jump in here? I just, you know, I listened to, you know, everything that you had to say, and I got to tell you, from my perspective, I'm furious. I'm furious that the thing passed. Simply because a lot of the people who were running, you know, especially in places like Colorado, they were running on the platform that they were going to stop Barack Obama. And one of the things that we saw coming was the amnesty thing. We knew that was coming. We knew that it was on the plate. It was there. They were going to force feed it to us. And one of the things that they promised us, those people who were running on the Republican ticket, was that they were going to stop him. And when they just basically handed everything to him in this omnibus package, which fully funds the amnesty thing, and it fully funds Obamacare through this next year. I mean, it's not just me. There are a whole lot of people who are really, really angry. It isn't that I'm wanting to eat my politicians. I certainly don't. I just want them to fulfill the promises that they've kept us. I mean, that they've made to us. And I think that they owe that to us, or at least a very good explanation. And I'm not seeing that. And so, I think that
there's a tactical mistake that our guys are making, and we know that the Democrats would. Had the Democrats roundly won at a midterm, even then during the lame duck session when control had not changed, they would be acting as if they already controlled the Senate. And our guys refused to, yeah,